Of all of Arabia's wildlife, one animal has embodied the spirit of the desert like no other. This is the story of the Arabian oryx, and what was a truly international effort to save these amazing animals from extinction. Highly adapted to the unforgiving rhythm of desert life, the oryx is now the flagship symbol of conservation in Arabia.
The Arabian oryx has a special interest from the long time ago, even to the Arab. Many people give special, even poet was mentioned from old time. They admired about its beauty, the whiteness, about the color of the eyes, and it represents the strength of the beauty in the desert. We consider the Arabian oryx one of the most beautiful mammal who live in the Arabian Peninsula.
Today, the Bedouin talk of the loss of the oryx as an upset of balance within the fragile natural order of life in the desert. A symbol of fortitude and resilience, no other wild mammal can survive the hardships of extremes with as much grace as the oryx. The love for these animals and all they represent has ironically led to the problems facing oryx today, with poaching for a few private collections at the heart of the challenges facing conservationists. The Arabian oryx is in fact an antelope, and the only one outside of Africa. It has evolved into an amazing mammal, with special adaptations for desert life. One of their most remarkable adaptations is how they can survive without water. In the wild, the Arabian oryx can survive without ever drinking water, simply by gaining all its moisture from plants. Some plants are eaten for their nutritional value, though others are sought after for their water content. These are plants also adapted to the desert, gaining their moisture directly from the atmosphere, mostly through morning dew. Some contain over 30% of their volume as water, and these are the plants that the oryx depend on for their moisture. Amazingly, oryx can detect rain falling, often hundreds of kilometers away. How they do so is still unclear. They will travel there, not for the water, but to find the plants that have benefited from the rain and are rich in water and protein. A more simple example of evolutionary adaptation is the oryx's white coat. This also helps its survival by reflecting the light and heat from the harsh desert sun. Just one mechanism used to control its body temperature. Most mammals maintain a constant body temperature, fluctuating by 1 or 2 degrees at any time, usually through sweating and panting. The oryx's body temperature, however, fluctuates by as much as 7 degrees through a process called heterothermy, which scientists still don't fully understand. When the temperatures are even too high for the oryx, they will seek respite in the shade of trees and bushes, sometimes digging shallow depressions called scrapes in order to lie down on cooler sands, increasing heat loss through conduction. Finding shade by late morning is a necessity. If trees are not available, oryx will make do with whatever shade it can find. Whilst remarkably adapted to desert survival, sadly, it was man that the oryx couldn't survive.
The species that caused us the most concern was the Arabian oryx, which, as we know, became extinct, almost extinct in the wild by the 1970s. was rescued from the wild and a captive herd set up in America. And these animals, or their descendants, were then used for a very successful reintroduction project in Oman. And subsequently they've been used also in Saudi Arabia, and there are plans to use them elsewhere in the Arabian Peninsula.
Since then, the IUCN has worked closely with regional wildlife authorities to monitor oryx conservation projects in Arabia. Every year, government authorities and NGOs meet to share information and discuss progress at workshops hosted by the Sharjah Breeding Center for Endangered Arabian Wildlife. The original animals sent to America were held in captivity in Phoenix, Arizona, providing the core of a world herd. This formed a genetic safety net which saved the Arabian oryx from certain extinction. By 1978, the world herd had grown enough to return some animals to Arabia. The first 4 animals were sent here, to Shamari Reserve in eastern Jordan, to establish a new breeding stock in Arabia. By 1988, Jordan's herd had grown to over 60 oryx, whilst other herds were established at reserves in Saudi Arabia, Oman, Bahrain and Qatar, with the aim to eventually reintroduce the oryx back into the wild. After tending this herd for over 24 years, Ahmed Shahrani dreams of a time when oryx can roam the wild without protection and fenced areas.
When we brought the animal, it was a plan. The plan, it's in the end, you have to release this animal without fence, inside the desert, living naturally. That's where I stuck in my mind from the beginning. So I work, and my colleagues also, they are working to that point.
Here we have 2 males. One of them they are old. He had about 12 years old, and the other one is almost 7.
If you prepare them to living in their nature, but if you couldn't, so it's okay to living in the enclosures. But it's okay with us. In the end, we can say we are save the oryx, we are keep the oryx, if it's in breeding center, in enclosures, or in 22 square kilometers. But this is not our, what we are looking for.
Whilst the oryx has been saved on the one hand, it is still questionable as to whether it will ever survive a future without enclosures and serious protection measures. Hunting and poaching have plagued regional efforts to protect this highly endangered animal. Here at the Yaluni Arabian Oryx Sanctuary in the Sultanate of Oman, what was once a flagship global conservation effort is now a project in serious trouble.
وين مكانه؟ بدون علامات من الختان جنوب 1 كيلو صح 1 كيلو ولا 3 كيلو؟ شو أخبار ثانية سعود؟
The dramatic growth of oryx numbers from 8 to 450 by 1996 was lauded by the international conservation community as a major captive breeding success story. But since then, the Yaluni wild oryx population has virtually collapsed due to poaching of live oryx for international private collections in neighboring Gulf states. With the wild herd now reduced to a mere 120 animals, of which only 8 are female, rangers are forced to provide an around-the-clock armed bodyguard, monitoring and reporting on the herd's movements 2 to 3 times a day. Part of the problem facing the rangers is the sheer size of the reserve. Over 27,000 square kilometers, without fenced boundaries to keep poachers out.
طبعا هؤلاء الصيادين يصطادوا غزلان وكذلك مهال عربي والأرانب أحيانا بنية الأكل، وبعض الطيور الحبارة التي أحيانا تكون مهاجرة أو وطنية محلية موجودة في هذه المنطقة. يعني لكن يختلف القصد، بعضهم بقصد تاجر وبعضهم بقصد الأكل والاستمتاع.
The rangers are all locally employed from the Harassis tribe, a proud desert people that pledge to protect the oryx at all costs to His Majesty Sultan Qaboos Al Said. Poachers, on the other hand, are mainly made up of individuals from other tribes. Discontented by the lack of job opportunities within the reserve, some resort to poaching, given that they can earn as much as $15,000 for each live oryx, preferring females, obviously for breeding purposes. With money like that, the incentive to poach is hard to resist, and the rangers are exposed to increasingly dangerous situations. Despite the risks, these rangers are proud to be protecting their own environment.
شعوري سعيد جدا بأني أعمل في هذا العمل، وهو كواجب وطني أولا، وأحس بأني أحس بارتياح في هذا العمل وعلى حماية